Hi everybody, it's Honest John again. In the aftermath of what can only be considered a substantial Republican defeat in last Tuesday's election, some people are expecting some soul searching in the Republican Party, a sober analysis of what went wrong. I mean, they had the money advantage, the economy isn't good, and they tried all kinds of tricks in order to win the election, and none of it worked. But I wouldn't count on there being a real sober analysis of what went wrong. There is a large segment of the GOP that are just simply not reasonable people. So an in-depth analysis is way beyond them. Instead of analysis, what we're beginning to see is finger pointing and excuse making. Now some are blaming the storm, Sandy, saying that halted Mitt Romney in his tracks. Since the storm was an act of God, they're basically saying God didn't want Mitt Romney to be elected. I could go with that. Some are blaming Chris Christie of New Jersey because of his praise of Obama for his response to Hurricane Sandy. Well, rather than blame Christie, maybe they should blame George W. Bush and his dad. The response of the Obama administration was clearly so much more competent than the Bush administration that it knocked down the Republican arguments about Obama being a bad leader. And it planted seeds of doubt in many minds about the wisdom of putting Republicans back in control. Now, naturally, some are blaming Mitt Romney. They say he was a terrible candidate, and there's a lot of truth in that. Romney was obviously out of touch with average Americans. He came across as a spoiled rich kid. His remarks about the 47% of Americans being takers revealed way too much about him. And only a spoiled rich kid would come out and tell people to borrow money from their parents to go to college. Most people don't have rich parents. And after the Wall Street fat cats caused so many people so much pain, running one of them for president might not have been such a great idea. But looking at the rest of the field, who else was there? Now those on the extreme right are saying that the problem was that Mitt Romney was not a true conservative. The fact is, there are no true conservatives left in the GOP. They all got replaced by batshit crazy radicals, which leads me to the other excuse the right is making, that they did not do a good enough job explaining their positions. This is comical. While it's true, Romney and Ryan avoided being specific about how they would implement their plans, we knew exactly what their plans were. More tax cuts for people who don't need it, more pain for the poor and the middle class, overturning Roe versus Wade, more government intrusion in the private lives of women and families, a huge expansion of military spending, a more bellicose and less sophisticated foreign policy, kowtowing to the religious right, and a continuation of their efforts to destroy unions and worker protections. Conservatives don't need to do a better job of explaining their policies and beliefs. They need to change them. At one time it was possible to be conservative without being racist, sexist, homophobic, and just plain batshit crazy. That's no longer the case. Right now, the Republican primaries are a contest who can move the furthest to the right, who can be the most racist, the most extreme, the most crazy. And we even saw that played out in the presidential primaries as Mitt Romney adopted positions to the right that were to the right of the craziest slate of candidates in American history. This might work in certain districts, but it won't get you elected on the national level. And finally, blatant attempts by conservatives to cheat their way into power using various means of voter suppression and intimidation backfired completely. They stiffened the resolve of those who felt they were being messed with and turned off the majority of American people. Don't forget, Republicans had to wait in the same lines that the Democrats did. And they didn't like it any more than the Democrats did. And since they were not really excited about Romney, Romney was the Republicans' last choice after everybody else was found to be failing. The enthusiasm for Romney was ginned up, mostly fueled by hatred for Obama. They didn't really like him. And they didn't really like him enough to wait in line for 6 hours to vote for him. Not only that, but those who see conservatives as anti-democratic, unprincipled, and without conscience had their suspicions confirmed by these actions. If conservatives are going to have a future in America, they're going to have to change themselves radically. They're going to have to embrace democracy in the vote. They're going to have to stop protecting the rich and embrace the middle class. They're going to have to distance themselves from the racist, the religious fanatics, and the ignorant. And they are going to have to accept that the fiscal policies that they have come to cling to, even though they've been proven to be false, they're going to have to accept they just don't work. They're going to have to come up with something that's really hard for conservatives to do. They're going to have to come up with some new ideas. Thanks for listening.